Down with the CCP, down with Xi Jinping, down with the zero COVID policy in China. What am I talking about? Let's get into it. But before we do, more important than that, many thanks to Albert who donated $15 on Super Thanks. And if you want to do that, let me show you how at the end of the show. Now, let's really get into it, and I'm going to show you this video clip first of all.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yesterday was good news in Guangzhou, a city very close to Hong Kong in China, that the COVID restrictions in some of the areas were released and no more PCR testing, in other words, dabbing in your mouth, has all gone and all being closed down, which showed on the video clip before. But mass testing still goes on in some other areas. Winter is setting in, it is already there in China, and it can be like this. So what I think is just going to be a gradual change, that many cities, even though they have relatively high, like 30 to 40,000 new cases every day, because the older generation have not been vaccinated, the situation, it's not like here in Cambodia, where it was the first country in the world to have actually zero COVID, because like 99% of the population have had 2 doses of a vaccine. I've had 2 doses. Fine as houses. In China, it's a different case entirely. Even trying to pay to give people money to get the vaccine, the first or the second. Now, please note, the time of the information I got with this was Friday, the 2nd of December 2022 in the morning, round about 8 or 9 o'clock my time, which is possibly the evening time on the 1st of December in New York City, round about 8 o'clock. Things can change, and this is being broadcast round about, or the first time it's going to be released is 6:30 a.m. New York City time. So this is the normal kind of action that the CCP will actually take. When something gets to a very sort of high level and tens of thousands of people have protested, which you've seen on mainstream media, you've seen on this channel, you've seen on some other channels like the China Show or Free China, Serpent ZA, Sea Milk, etc., etc. What happens is the government just gives a little bit of, you could say, freedom. In other words, Guangzhou, even though pretty high cases there, they've said, okay, lockdown is over in most areas and no more testing. Good news, yeah? So they would hope this would squash the protest and the other cities will be in line, hopefully, or this is what they think the Chinese people will think. Is that going to be the case? Well, only time will tell, and it's just a day-by-day situation. Now, there are some people that said this whole protest started with a fire in a northwestern city called Urumqi. I always get the name wrong, in Xinjiang province. This is the province which has a lot of controversy at the time with Uyghurs, etc. But that's a completely other story. There are some people saying that it was the cars that blocked the fire engines for 3 hours before they could get to take out the fire. Hence, some people did lose their lives. The numbers, we just don't know. The official number is 10, but they say it could be, some unofficial reports could be saying it's actually higher than that. But here is the fire engines trying to break through the COVID barriers in order to get to the fire in Urumqi, in the northwestern town in China. In most of the major cities in the People's Republic of China, the police are on the prowl related to pictures, videos that may be on their social media, just maybe in their Photos app on their phone, asking them to delete, going through their WeChat, like going through Facebook, for example, making sure you don't have any videos of it. So in recent days, you haven't seen anything from the you haven't seen anything latest, because there's been a real tight lockdown on the actual videos that people have taken. You've seen the videos in the past where there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people holding up their phone and taking pictures and taking videos. This is what the police are trying to delete. But there are some Western shills in China who are just being the opposite and just saying things didn't happen. For example, this guy, Mr. Jason Lightfoot, who's in Changsha at the moment.
And now, according to Western media, China has erupted in protests in every...
我一直非常愤怒的一点是，为什么我们说一句实话？
Well, first of all, it's not just Western media. Where did the Western media get the videos from? Quite simply from Twitter, from Telegram, from Weibo, from WeChat, from Snapchat, from any kind of network they can get the words out to, not just the Western media. I'm sorry, Jason Muppet Lightfoot, wrong there.
According to BBC. So we're going to see, is that true? We are live. We are actually live here on the ground, unlike those journalists, if you can call them journalists. So let's take a look. And let me just show you the streets behind me. Let's see if we can indeed see any protests on the streets.
So, as I said, he is in Changsha. I'm not too sure what he's doing there, but there weren't any protests in there, and he's just being his usual trying to be funny person. I could think of a lot more things like paint drying that is funnier than Mr. Lightfoot. Another one is a South African guy who lives in Shandong province in... I've forgotten the name of the city, saying this.
Now, there were stories and rumors online saying these fire trucks were blocked by barricades of the COVID restrictions, which were debunked very, very quickly and fast. And a lot of you guys don't know about it, so I'm going to tell you about it right now. The real truth is it was cars that blocked these fire trucks. They couldn't come through, they couldn't go through the alleys.
His name is Jerry Good, and he was saying that the fire trucks were unable to get to the fire in this northwestern town. I think you need to look at this video, Mr. Jerry. How were they debunked? We've just seen the evidence of the actual COVID barriers, the water-filled barriers blocking the fire brigade.
Yes, in Shanghai. Just doesn't look right to me, ladies and gentlemen. It feels to me that this is a planned operation. Look, there are people pissed off with the zero COVID policy, but the push and the instigation of this whole thing feels to me that it's a planned operation. If you look at them videos of these people protesting in Shanghai, you will clearly see a bunch of foreign faces, like real foreign faces, people from the West. But you will also see a bunch of young Chinese people that's got passports in other countries. So the story came out.
The other thing that these Western shills who live in China are saying now, that it's the foreign influence, the CIA, the FBI, MI5, MI6, whatever it is. They're saying that China is not clever enough to put this together. Well, go and look at some videos of people in the protest saying, how can we access Western media when we're not allowed to use Western media? Good question. Here's another guy who did actually escape China in June last year to go to the United Kingdom, and he is saying that there was some foreign interference.
Issues, but it became quite apparent those protests were infiltrated by foreign operators, and the message in the media in the West moved to that these protests were to overthrow the Chinese government and Xi Jinping.
Now, let me give you a moment or two of the Western media. Bloomberg, and Xi Jinping faces worst crisis of his tenure. This is a report that I snipped off Twitter not so long ago related to it, and you can catch up of what's been happening and what's happening now.
Chinese President Xi Jinping is facing a huge dilemma, with anti-COVID zero protests flaring up across the country. He's left with few good options. A rapid exit from COVID zero could field a surge in death, or a crackdown on the protests. Heavy police presence has since kept protesters away. The question is, how will Xi's government respond? It's been almost 3 years of strict COVID rules, lockdowns, and endless rounds of testing that have kept China largely isolated from the rest of the world. Xi has staked his personal reputation on its success, keeping death to a minimum compared to the West. But now some residents in China have had enough and have taken to the streets to call for change. The widespread protests, in these numbers and coordinated like this, is extremely rare.
I would say that in general, the Communist Party underestimated anger at a grassroots level. It's value related.
And how the younger generation in China related to the protests are talking. But just before that, I was actually speaking to a person that I'm trying to help related to education in China, that she wants to go and study in a foreign country in Beijing. Quoted for her, I did do it very politely. I said, do you have any white paper? She understood what I was saying, and basically she said, no, I don't want to go out, because if I do and my face gets recognized, it may jeopardize my future in going overseas. But have a look at this young lady, and I would say she speaks for a lot of people in China.
我这2天我在微信、我在抖音我都在发，但是我所有的朋友都在劝我小心被抓进去，这一抓就是要坐几年，为什么？
The truth is always out there. The truth always doesn't come from mainstream media. Quote, every media from China to America sometimes blow up the story. But what you can see if you go onto a Twitter feed and you scrutinize and you analyze and do reverse searches, etc., image searches, etc., you can find out the truth yourself. When I see videos of people walking down the street and it's nothing related, or protesting down the street, nothing related to mainstream media, and you can hear them, it's not on a mainstream media channel, it's just on, they managed to get it out onto Twitter one way or another. That's what I believe, and that's what I'm reporting to you. You can be pro, you can be against, that's fine. But I do believe in people, and I think 3 years in lockdowns, and then not a lockdown, then another lockdown, etc., is too much. And people in China have seen the West, where you go to a football match in Qatar, for example, the World Cup, where tens of thousands of people are not wearing masks. I would say most of them have been vaccinated, etc., etc. Whether you believe in the vaccination, that's another story that we can leave to another day. So that's why they're upset. Why are we, and North Korea and some other countries as well, I can't name them all to be honest with you, do have some kind of a lockdown. My simple example for the rest of the world is, look at the history of Cambodia. I'm in Cambodia, I've been based here near enough about 7 years, and how they dealt with the COVID situation. And I would say, even though it's a small country, they did the best. Thank you for your time. Do like, subscribe, and share. There is a link to the subscription in the description below. I'll get that right. And if you do want to support these channels financially, please do with super thanks or joining the membership program or on Patreon, because most of the time YouTube will demonetize this because of it's not suitable for advertisements one way or the other. So many thanks to Mr. Albert, who did donate $15 for, you could say, the production of these videos. God bless to everyone. Hopefully I will be back tomorrow. Be well, be safe, be happy. My name is James. Bye bye for now.